Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the third official episode of the Amateur Experts Podcast. I'm your host, Landon Oliver, with my co host, Andrew Scott. How's it
What's
going?
poppin'? Hey man, how's it going?
And boy, do we have a treat for you guys here today. We have our special guest, our special friend, league mate in the Replacements Dynasty League, Lanny Holeman. How's it going, man? Let's give him a round of applause.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Yeah, not only do I have this Rams jersey on because, the Rams won this week, something we'll talk about in depth later, but I won this in honor of Lanny because this nice man actually gifted this jersey to me a couple years ago. So I had to put this thing on, if he was going to join us. So it's good to have you here, man.
Thanks, brother.
Well, guys, what a weekend. What, like 6 games? Like,
I could get used to this extra playoff
10
team
out of
thing,
10, man.
Yeah.
And then, like, pretty much all the games except for one were like really, really good games. So,
Yeah.
so Andrew, I know you kind of had our pick'ems. How did that end up going for both of us?
Yeah, so we both ended up finishing 3-3 on our pick'ems for the week. So let me pull that up real quick. We both picked the Bills to beat the Colts. So we both got that one. So
Boo.
you actually picked the Browns to beat the Steelers, but then
No.
whenever Stefanski and everybody,
Well,
the
I figured with
positive
their
COVID
whole
test
team
pop,
being
yeah,
gone,
hey, make
Well,
complete sense to switch. So you put in
well,
your switch. Hey, I'm gonna go with the Steelers instead. So I with the Steelers as well. We both were
should have
wrong
trusted
on
my
that
gut,
pick.
man.
you'd be crazy. I mean, you'd be crazy to think that that was what's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
I
Already
mean, what the
underdogs. You lose your head coach.
what?
Yeah, there was no
If
reason
the,
for
if,
the
if the
Browns to
whole
win that
COVID
game.
thing did not happen, though, I would have 100% stuck with the Browns.
Yeah. So if you would have stuck with your pick on that one, you would have had that one. But we both picked the Steelers. Wrong on that one. Titans versus Ravens. I should have went with my gut. I didn't. I ended up talking myself into the Titans. You picked the Ravens, and so you got that one correct. I got that one wrong. Saints versus Bears. This is where you went out on a limb and said, the Bears were going to be the upset team of the week and take down the Saints. Unfortunately, that did not happen. I had the Saints. You had
Blinded
the
by the
Bears on that one.
Nickelodeon slime.
Right. Seahawks versus Rams. We both took the Seahawks to win that game. And, as you have already heard and can see, they did not. And I've never been so happy to be wrong. So we were both wrong on that one. And then we both took the Buccaneers to take down Washington, which they did. So we both finished 3-3 for the week. So clean slate. We're all knotted up after 1 week. So
If I'm not going to break, or if I'm not going to end up with, a losing record, that's good for me. So,
right. Yeah. I
want
was
to
just
break
happy to get half the games right. So
man, let's get into some of these games. I know we're really excited to have Lanny on. If for those that don't know, Lanny is a Titans fan, and we definitely want to get to that one. But first, we're going to kick off with our first game of the week, which was the Colts and the Bills. Unfortunately, my boys are going home. But it was a great season. I'm really proud of them. Really excited, especially after everything it transpired over the last, pretty much 12 months, because I know it seems like it was about like 15 years ago, but Andrew Luck actually retired in September of 2019. So when the season started, he had only been retired for one season, even though he's basically gone for 2 years. So this was our second season without him, picking up the pieces with Rivers. We went into Buffalo, long shot, hottest team in the NFL, Josh Allen, MVP level player, and we played them to the final whistle. I'm super proud of it. It was a great performance. Uh, what'd you guys think of that game? Start with you, Lanny.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I kind of knew, obviously, being a Titans fan, I was like, I can't pull for the Colts. I mean, it's just, that wasn't going to happen. I really like the Bills, and Josh Allen and Diggs have been special all year. The run game for them really didn't get going, and they just, I don't know. I just felt like they weren't. I felt like when they were ahead, they were just not going to give it up. And I mean, y'all fought them to the very end. It was just, I mean, it was a damn good game. But it just wasn't. They just didn't have it. I don't know. Their defense looked good. The Colts defense looked good, and Jonathan Taylor is, going to be something special because he broke away a couple. And I thought if they just got him going a little bit more, that they would stay around, and they did stay around. But it just came down to, I guess, the better team wins.
Yeah.
But it was a damn good game, and I'm kind of glad they lost. Well, hey,
be careful.
We
I want to invite you back on the show. Be careful what you say here.
Yeah, no. Hell, we play later in the day, and I had to sulk and pout too. So,
man, so with this game, I think it boiled down to the Colts. Obviously, I think have more overall team talent. This game is a perfect teach tape example of what an MVP level quarterback looks like versus a good quarterback. Yep. So Philip Rivers is a good quarterback. Josh Allen is an MVP level quarterback. And I think that was the entire difference in that game.
I think he only has like 300 or 200 yards. No, he's got like 200 yards more than Aaron Rodgers. But he's got like not 40 touchdowns, and that's like, an elusive number kind of thing.
Well, I think total touchdowns, I think he's got about 40.
Yeah, because he does have like 500 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns.
But regardless, I mean, like, you got three guys basically in that MVP discussion. We all know Rodgers is running away with it, but Mahomes, obviously, Rodgers are the two in most people's minds, and then you got Josh Allen and a lot of other people's. But this game basically boiled down to the Bills have an MVP talent at quarterback and the Colts don't. We played them very well on defense. We got Josh Allen, and we put really good pressure on him throughout the whole game. He escaped. He made some great throws to Diggs, once he escaped the pocket. And I just, I don't really know if there was much more the Colts could have done. Obviously, I think there were some questionable decisions as far as situational football from the coaching staff, but I liked the decisions for the most part. And I know that goes against the grain of the casual fan, but I think going for it on that fourth down that they missed in the end zone, the pass to Pittman, I think, if Rivers was just, 6 inches, a little bit more to him, then that's a touchdown and we're going up. But the first half, especially after the first half, I knew we weren't winning that game because that was literally almost an exact perfect blueprint for what the Colts wanted to do. They played an absolutely tremendous half of football, and they were a couple Josh Allen plays away, and the Bills still had the lead at halftime. So it was very disheartening to watch. But like I said, I'm proud of the way they fought. I don't necessarily know right now because we haven't seen the Chiefs play yet. So we don't know kind of, what mode they're in. So I'm kind of curious, Andrew, who stops Josh Allen and the Bills right now? Because they are, bar none, the hottest team and the hottest quarterback in the NFL at this moment.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, coincidentally, they get to play probably the second hottest team in the NFL, in the divisional round whenever they have to go up against Baltimore. And, we'll talk about that later when we get into our picks for that. So I don't want to spoil too much, but I mean, the short answer is I think Kansas City still is the team to beat, even without us seeing them play. I think Kansas City really got into a point in the regular season where they were just kind of bored almost, and kind of like what we've seen from LeBron at points in his career during the regular season, where he just kind of coasted to the postseason. Yeah, and the Warriors during their run, you just kind of see a sense of just really it's getting hard to to get up and motivate yourself for those games, and so I do still think they're the team to beat, and I think that they're probably the only team that can slow down the Bills, even though I do think that this and again, I'll talk about this more later. I think that this Bills-Ravens matchup is, I think the Ravens are the only other team that could possibly take down the Bills. So I think this weekend's going to be really interesting. But I still think it's Mahomes. It is really the only answer right now for a chance of the Bills not making the Super Bowl. I agree with what you guys were saying that essentially the Colts-Bills game came down to great quarterback play versus good quarterback play, and Josh Allen just he continued his hot streak of playing well. Stephon Diggs just continued doing what he's been doing all year. I mean, he's been that. Whenever that trade was made, people were kind of shocked at what Minnesota got back. And I think that was a rare win-win trade where, Justin Jefferson's obviously been fantastic for Minnesota. And then Stephon Diggs has clearly been what the Bills needed. He's always open, and Allen has made sure to find him whenever that's been the case. And so I think that it's definitely going to have to be the Chiefs to slow him down. But yeah, this weekend is going to be interesting, though. I'm really looking forward to that Bills and Ravens game.
As am I. So that brings us to the second game of the Saturday slate, one that I'm sure Andrew would love to talk about. The Rams versus the Seahawks, with the Los Angeles Rams coming away with the victory in a pretty, dominant fashion. I don't think, it was necessarily close, as far as the Rams defense really, really put on a show, and they showed what they're about. Now, obviously, there's some questions as far as, with the injuries, and I know they're expecting Aaron Donald to play and all that stuff, but, they got banged up a little bit in that game, which kind of gives me some worry with them going into Lambeau.
Right.
But that being said, Cam Akers looked fantastic. I think he had 100+ yards in the first half. Basically put that offense on their back. And, Jared Goff, he didn't necessarily play that great, but he didn't beat you either. And I think that's what you're wishing for with Jared Goff is, just don't make the mistake, just manage the game.
Right.
So I want to kind of get into a little bit of the Seahawks real quick before we go any more into the Rams. Obviously, we saw the drop off the second half of the season. They were very, very explosive beginning of the year. The last part of the season, they've really, really slowed down. And I think it really, really showed up to bite them in the butt on Saturday. Now, obviously, the Rams have the best defense in the NFL, according to me and a lot of other people. But, I think the nagging issue with them wanting to establish the run instead of Russell Wilson is going to continue to bite them in the butt. I know, Lanny, you sent me something earlier today about that. Kind of what's your thoughts on Seattle real quick?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was reading something, or they were talking about it in the middle of the game about Pete Carroll. Like, well, is he going to move on or whatever? Or does he get full power or something? He wants something. I thought he said he maybe wanted full power. But the Seahawks to me are like, they have it in their head that they just need to push the ball, run the ball, whatever. And they don't have, there's nothing against Rashard Penny or Chris Carson or whoever else they have. That's not their best player. It's Russell Wilson. So to me, honestly, for that offense to be any kind of good, you need to run like play action bootleg and shit. And you have a freaking monster at wide receiver. You also have Tyler Lockett, who's speedy. But you're not using those weapons because all you want to do is just try to shove it down the throat. And when that doesn't work, then you just don't know, you're like, well, I'll just beat Russell Wilson, be greatness. Well, like the last 2 or 3 seasons, that's what he's tried to be. It's just I'm going to carry it, and this is it. But that's not gonna win. That's not gonna get you far, And then he turned the ball over so much in like 3 or 4 games in a row, and you just can't do that as a quarterback. And I like Seattle. No offense to you, Andrew, but I don't know. It's just almost like they're stagnant. Like they'll have this good breakout beginning of the year, and then they'll just get like, it's not even like they're bored. They're just not. They just become not good, But I don't know. I'm curious to see what like Pete Carroll does, and what they kind of do in the draft to see how do they take a better running back or do they go like defensive? What they've kind of been doing. I know they got Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap, but they helped out, but it's just not. It's not the same. They banked on 3 or 4 DBs and Marshawn Lynch for years, and then they can't get that out of their head. Just be who you have, right? That's kind of where I go.
Spot on.
That's the winning formula. So that'll kind of, there's also a report today that came up that Pete Carroll wants to establish the run even more this next season, which is kind of just crazy. But to get
Yeah, I
on,
love to hear it.
yeah.
I hope that's their plan.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Which brings me to my next point is this is for Andrew, which I'm sure he would love to talk about. How did the Rams beat Seattle on Saturday?
Cam fucking Akers,
But
man.
I sent that in the chat the entire time, and you finally acknowledged it.
You come into the game knowing you've either got a quarterback making his second start in the NFL or you've got a quarterback with a broken thumb. They didn't announce who was going to start until a couple hours before the game, basically trying to, force Seattle to prepare for both. But you would have to think that that regardless who the quarterback is, the plan is to try to run the ball and let the number one defense in the NFL do what they do best, kind of hitting Seattle with their own formula. And even knowing that, Cam Akers still came in, and all he did was have 176 total yards on 30 touches against a run defense that had been, for the last 6 weeks of the regular season, they were, I believe, top 5 in run defense, once they really started to get it together. So, you had an offense that clearly needed to run the ball. You had a defense that had been able to stop the run, and Cam Akers just did not care. And it was truly incredible to watch. And it's, you were talking about blame in terms of, you had asked us, who to blame for the Seahawks breakdown. And I think a lot of that has to get put on Brian Schottenheimer's shoulders, honestly. If I have to pick somebody, and if Pete Carroll is influencing how he's calling the game, but I'm not sure how much that's the case, because Schottenheimer's kind of always had this philosophy anyway as the OC. But the inability to adapt to today's NFL, whenever the 3 best players on your team are Russell Wilson, on your offense are Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. In my opinion, I think those are the 3 best players on the offensive side of the ball. And you do everything in your power to not put the ball in their hands until you're losing in the fourth quarter, and you're or if you're earlier in the game, whenever you put yourself in obvious pass down situations, because on first down you go for a 2-yard run, on second down you go for a 1-yard run, and then now on 3rd and 7, I wonder what they're going to dial up here. Whenever you put Russ in situations like that, and then part of it does fall on Russ. Russ made plenty of turnovers that you just can't do, whenever you're considered a top 3, top 5 quarterback at worst by most people across the league. Some plays you just can't make. But I think a lot of it comes down to the positions that they're putting Russ in, where they're just kind of making their offense predictable. But it was really insane to me that the Rams offense was somewhat predictable too, where you knew what they wanted to do, but the difference was the Rams defense was stopping the Seahawks from doing what they wanted to do, and the Seahawks defense just wasn't stopping Cam Akers. They didn't slow him down at all. So, that was obviously the difference maker on the offensive side of the ball for the Rams.
Gotcha. And it was a great win for you guys. I'm sure you're very, very excited. And for your, not for nothing, but your prize now is to go into Lambeau in the freezing cold temperatures to face Aaron Rodgers. So
right,
it's a great prize to winning that game.
He's gonna need to double wrap his thumb for sure.
Look, I'll tell you, it's one other sweet thing about the game is it has been so annoying as a Rams fan to be in the NFC West. Whether it's the Cardinals, the Niners, the Seahawks. Each year it's somebody different that's emerging as just this great team, and now you look and there's only one NFC West team left, and and it's us. So that's a beautiful thing, but. I'll save my thoughts for the Packers game later, but just spoiler alert, I'm not picking against my team again this time.
Gotcha. Well, now to move on with our final game of the Saturday slate, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers face off against a very, very scrappy Washington football team, NFC East, and I think there's only 2 words to say when it comes down to this game. Taylor Heineke. What a fucking performance. I gave them no shot. I think most of, the civilized world gave them no shot. And they turned that into a really, really good football game.
A lot of fun to watch. Yeah.
It's super fun to watch. I love Cinderella stories such as that. So, either one of you guys can answer. with that performance on Saturday, does Taylor Heineke actually have a shot to start for that team next season?
I think you got to give him a shot. I mean, your first game, well, I think he played for like the Panthers 1 quarter or something like that, and then he came in the playoffs and was like, "This is it, guys. Or I'm going to give him my all," and he did. I mean,
Yeah.
and honestly, I was pulling for it. I'm not anti Tom Brady, but like I was pulling for the Skins to pull that one out. And I thought they had a shot. Their defense is solid. I mean, it's pretty solid. And I think if depending on what Alex Smith does, God bless that dude. That's insane that he's even playing. And I really think that they should give him another shot to start the season next year. I mean, he proved he can play, and I was surprising that he was like ringing, like throwing balls in the middle of the field, just slinging.
Oh yeah,
He
He was
didn't.
playing without fear.
Yeah.
You would have
Yeah.
never knew that was his first big game start. You would have thought that he had been doing this for a little while the way he played. And he's like you said, Landon. I mean, we as sports fans, we kind of live and hang on to the Cinderella story, and he went from last year. I was obviously being a St. Louis sports fan, I embraced and loved the Battlehawks while they were here. He went from being the Battlehawks backup quarterback. To Jordan Tamu, to being all of a sudden starting against Tom Brady in a playoff game. And according to PFF, a lot of people shit on Pro Football Focus and what they do and their scores that they put out and things like that. But according to PFF, he outplayed Tom Brady. It was only about a 2-point difference, but so I mean, it was just a lot of fun to watch. But we do need to keep in mind, taking the rose-colored glasses off, that the way that you beat the Buccaneers, if you're going to beat them, is through the air, and that's what they did. And but that shouldn't take away from his performance. And I do think he at least earned himself a shot to start, if not at Washington, somewhere else. He should be at least competing for a starting quarterback job somewhere. Whether he ends up winning it or not, we'll see. But he at least earned that, I think.
So to move on to the Bucks, now kind of like your consolation prize for the Rams was to go into Green Bay. Now they get to go in to New Orleans for the second time this season and for the third overall battle between Tom Brady and Drew Brees. It's just amazing that you have both of those guys at that age. Obviously, I think Brady's playing better than Brees, but Brees is also, 2-0 against Brady right now this year. Do you think that Tom Brady can exercise that Saints demon, going into this game?
I mean, I think he can. It's hard. I mean, like I always hear, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. I mean, and I think they've been playing a little more on fire as far as their passing game goes, a little more continuity. I didn't really think Antonio Brown was going to do anything, honestly, but he did. And I really feel like that the Bucks will probably pull this one out. I don't like the Saints, to be honest. Just keep it real. I don't like the Saints. I'm like you, Landon. They complain way too much. I mean, they got a rule made for them, and then they took the rule away, which was kind of funny.
To be fair, Tom Brady's had a few rules made for him in his day as well. So.
Well, yeah, he has one of the more famous rules, the Tucky.
Well, him and as much as I love Peyton Manning, him and Manning are the main reasons that you can't touch quarterbacks these days.
Oh yeah, you can't hit the below the knee thing.
Well,
because after
that one was
after Brady got his little knee hurt.
But that's going to be an interesting game because, like you said, you hear very, very tough to beat a team 3 times in a row. So I'm curious to see kind of what the Buccaneers have in store for a very, very tough Saints squad, especially with the reports that Drew Brees is going to be retiring after this season. I think they try to send him out with his basically with his Peyton Manning, John Elway kind of swan song here, and see if he can retire on a Super Bowl victory. So now let's kind of get into our Sunday slate. Lanny, first game up. I know it's going to be a tough one for you. I'm not going to lie, kind of enjoyed it. Ravens versus Titans. Let's just get right into it. What happened to the Tennessee Titans on Sunday afternoon because Derrick Henry, who, King Henry 2K, you've been hearing it all week, since last week, he's broken all these records and great running back, but he just completely no-showed in that game.
Yeah, I mean, he did. And I mean, it's no, Ravens defense is good. They bottled him up. And then the main thing with me for that game is that they lost the line of scrimmage. They never had the line of scrimmage push that they normally have. I think the Ravens were just ready. Like, I think, all the smack talk that happens, the dance on the logo, all that stuff that just really fired them up. And we had beat them in the playoffs last year. We beat them this year when they had a lead. And, I honestly thought at one time during that game we was going to end up pulling it out. But if you can't get they call him the El Tractor or whatever. If you can't get him going, then, I mean, that's basically our offense. We're relying on, A.J. Brown. And then Corey Davis got hurt. We just couldn't establish anything. And I really thought once Tannehill threw that sideline pass, like just perfect to A.J. Brown, and we went up 10-0, I was like, hell yeah. But then it's like typical inconsistent Titans. It's just like the flick of the light. They turned off what I thought they were going to keep doing and keep, grinding it out. But they just, when Derrick Henry can't get going, Arthur Smith's like, well, I don't, and I honestly think his play calling wasn't really that good this game. For example, like Derrick Henry at towards the end of the game, it was first and 10, and he ran for 8 yards, and then you don't give him the ball again, and they never have him on the field on third down, and I think that's silly because you obviously know what's going to happen.
That 8-yard gain was his biggest gain of the game too, and then you turn around and just stop handing him the ball. That really was crazy.
I don't like it, and then like I was telling Landon earlier, I was like, there was like, if you look at the silly sports fans on Facebook or whatever, they're like, yeah, there's like a conspiracy theory going on that they wanted to kind of tank it so they could keep Arthur Smith, and I'm like, I really don't think that's the case.
I mean, everybody knows
I don't think they would want to
offensive
lose.
coordinator is more important than winning a playoff game. Everybody knows that.
Right.
And that's that's what you read that stuff and it's so infuriating. But
yeah.
So Lamar Jackson, he finally gets the monkey off his back. The proverbial monkey off of his back by winning his first playoff game. Right. He absolutely showed up on the ground. I think there's still some question marks about him through the air.
He's so fast though, man. He's just
he's a game changer, man.
Dude, when he found that I don't even know, dude. He outran it like Byard and everybody. And then the second half, when he found that little seam, like between the guard and the tackle, and he gets 20 yards, I'm just like, what?
Yeah. That's what I think. The coolest thing about him getting that first playoff win is he did it his way. He didn't do it the way that people think quarterbacks are supposed to play. He didn't adapt to the you're supposed to play like this. You're supposed to do this. Lamar played his game his way, and he won a playoff game.
What's crazy about that as well is I think, like, if you actually watch the game, I think there was a little bit of that there in the beginning where he wanted to beat them from the pocket just to prove.
He made quite a few good passes to Hollywood in this game too.
Yeah, made some very good throws, but at the same time, he left a lot of yards with his legs on the field. Like, there were a lot of times he could have taken off and gashed the Titans. And he held on to it and tried to make the throw, which I know that's what you want him to do. But, at the same time, be who you are, like you said, and play with your legs.
Another thing I didn't really understand about it was, like, the previous week, against the Texans, we ran like 3 freaking bootleg touchdowns to Tannehill, and we didn't do that RPO at all. And I realized you got to
on top of those questions. There was 2 big questions I had with the play calling and decision making in general with this game. The one, regardless if Henry struggled or not, why are you only giving this man 18 carries in a game that's within reach, basically from start to finish? Yeah. Like, I don't care if he's struggling or not. At any point, he can break off a 90-yard. How many 90-yard touchdown runs has he broke off at this point in his career? And so that's number one. Number two, your head coach wants to, like, it was a cool line. Like, if a wrestling every coach in the NFL would get us farther in the playoffs, I'd do it. I'm a big tough guy, rah rah. But then it comes time to like make tough decisions, and you have a chance to go for it on 4th and 2 from the Baltimore 40-yard line. In the fourth quarter, you're down by 4 points. Now it's time to get tough. It's really time to get tough on the field, and you decide to punt instead of go for it.
That was weak. I think
The
that all the momentum.
Henry's usage and that one call right there were the two differences for me for Tennessee.
Yeah, I think that basically, just as weird as that sounds, that put kind of the nail in the coffin for the Titans, was that decision to punt on that play. Because I think it zapped all momentum they had. And
I really love Variable. I think he's a good coach, but I don't really think he and when tough decisions happen, he folds a lot of times.
Yeah, I think his ego kind of gets the better of him.
Yeah, he's got that linebacker, I'm the shit ego. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be kind of honest too, like with the way the Titans have acted, especially towards the Ravens, as far as, you had Malcolm Butler mouthing off the Harbaugh, obviously Harbaugh and Vrabel in the middle of the field after the Titans,
awkward.
Yeah, like you had that whole scenario earlier in the year with the Titans standing on the logo, all the kind of trash talk that they've been doing from that playoff win last season. And basically, I think the Ravens just showed up and punched them in the mouth. And
which is what we wanted to do, but it wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of wondering now, as a Titans fan, obviously y'all won last year. You won the earlier in this year, but the Ravens beat y'all when it counts. Do you consider that now an official rivalry, Ravens Titans?
Well, it's kind of always been a rivalry, I guess, in a sense, even though we haven't played each other in the playoffs a lot. If you do remember, the best Tennessee Titans teams we've ever had, they came into our house and beat the shit out of us in like 2003, I think, something like that. And yeah, ever since then, I've not liked them at all. But I really hope that it continues, because there's nothing better in NFL than a playoff rivalry. I mean, it's just, and it's not even like a divisional thing. It's I just don't like them.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I mean, that's understandable. So let's move on to a game that we're not really going to cover much in depth, because there wasn't really much to cover, other than, getting covered in slime. And that was the Nickelodeon game. Mm-hmm. And that was the Bears and the Saints. Super, super fun broadcast. If you didn't watch the Nickelodeon broadcast, you really missed out. There was a lot of really cool animations, really cool discussions for kids, basically explaining the rules. And, anytime I can turn on Football Sunday and get SpongeBob and Patrick to explain what football is, I'm going to enjoy that. So I'm still a big, 8-year-old at heart. But man, I do honestly feel bad for any of the kids that had to watch that Bears offense, because they're probably never going to watch another game.
Yeah, I mean, the David Montgomery that carried a lot of people to fantasy championships over the second half of the season, whenever he had that extremely, cake schedule of bottom run defenses for like 6 straight weeks, whatever it was. He reminded us who he really was whenever, he had to go up against a top run defense, for the first time in months. So I think he had 30 yards on 12 attempts. And that had really been the driving force to that offense's success as of late. I mean, Mitch had played better, but that, they were able to run the ball at will against everybody that they played. And the Saints are a team that you cannot run against, and they got exposed for that. So, the Saints just did what they did, and pretty much what was expected across the board, I think. So I really don't have a lot, a lot more to say on that.
Not really much to say other than, man, if you're the Bears defense, and of course, obviously, I'm always going to have a soft spot for Chuck Pagano because of what he meant to the city of Indianapolis, regardless of his coaching acumen, but. To see a Chuck Pagano defense play as well as they did, man, the Bears just have to be so let down. And I know a lot of Bears fans in this area, because I'm 5-10 minutes from the Illinois state line, so there's a lot of Bears fans where I live. There's a lot of them that they're very deflated, because that Bears defense really showed up, and the offense just was horrible. Like, I don't see any way that you can bring back Trubisky or Foles. And really, I wouldn't be surprised to see Nagy, you know, go away. So let's just go ahead, chalk this one up to the Saints by far being the better football team. The Bears are who we thought they were um, getting into the playoffs. So let's just move on to our final game. And to me, honestly, other than the Bills Colts, this was the best game of the weekend. Not necessarily from how close the game was, but just how great it was to see the Cleveland Browns show up and perform against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. Just an absolute, shell shocking, especially first half. They just absolutely from the first snap just absolutely demolished that squad. So that's that's just kind of where it ended up. So are the Steelers the worst 11-0 team in history?
I'd have to have a list of 11-0 teams in NFL history in front of me to definitively answer that. But I mean, look, you can make a case for it regardless of even seeing that list. I mean, they went from being 11-0 to finishing the season 1-5 the last 6 weeks if you count the playoff week. 1-4, and then the playoff loss. I mean, they went from looking like one of the best teams in the league to looking like, I mean, the Jets were almost playing better football the last 5 weeks of the season than the Steelers were, and it was it was really, you could kind of see the writing on the wall right before they went on this losing streak. There were a lot of people calling them overrated just for what their record showed, and those people were proven right those last 6 weeks of the season. So I mean, I think there's a case to be made regardless, but I don't think it's all completely what we saw on the field. That's part of it, but also you have to keep in mind that they did lose Devin Bush and Bud Dupree and Zach Banner, all three to season-ending injuries as well. All big parts of what they were doing whenever they were having success, and the run game, which was was always a big part of, like, the Steelers' formula has always been run the ball and play defense, and that worked for a little bit. Running the ball really never worked much this season, but playing defense did. So I've seen a lot of people saying that they think Big Ben maybe this is it, but honestly, I think Bud Dupree is a free agent, but I think if they can let that defense get healthy, get right, I really think that they're going to bring Big Ben back for one more year. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Um, my guess is that they run it back with Big Ben. Hopefully, let that defense get healthy. Try to address the run game in free agency and the draft. Whether that's addressing O-line in free agency, the running back position in the draft, or whatever they choose to do, and try to run it back one more time. But if they fall short again next year, I really think that's going to be the end of Big Ben and Tomlin in the era that they've had there. But we'll see.
Right. So Lanny, that brings me to you because Andrew just kind of touched on it. You think Big Ben's done? Because he got a little emotional there on the sidelines.
Yeah, that was that kind of hit me when they saw that video of him and Pouncey sitting on the bench, and he's like, "I'm sorry. Only reason I did this was for you." I think a lot of times it comes to the way you lost. If Big Ben would have made it to the Super Bowl and then lost, he probably would have retired. But I think you lose to the Browns in the first round. I mean, you don't lose to the Browns. You got, your ass kicked.
Beat up. Yeah.
Yeah. I think here's my thing with the Steelers. I think they are a lot like the Seahawks. They keep trying to do the same thing and not adapt into what the NFL has become, right? So if you're going to pound, I mean, unless you got like Derrick Henry, obviously, then we can do that. But I think you need to like adapt to and Big Ben can't move anymore. He's not mobile. You remember when he used to try to get sacked and he'd spin out of it, and he can't do that anymore. So obviously, because he can't do that and they can't run. I mean, their run game was just non-existent. Like,
yeah,
bad.
and I think this goes kind of to the point, and I think we saw it in the Colts game too. I think in 2020 and pretty much going forward, you have to have a quarterback that can be mobile in this league to consistently win, you know, in the playoffs, in tough situations, because the Colts, like they struggled in the red zone all year, and it's because teams just constantly loaded up and try to put pressure. And as great as our O line is, Philip Rivers is a statue, and I think that's kind of what you saw in Pittsburgh as well. You weren't able to get out of that pressure that Browns team was generating with Myles Garrett and some of those other guys. Um, so I think obviously this says more about the Browns than it does the Steelers losing. I think the Steelers did everything in their power in the week leading up to it, especially with some of the comments from guys like Juju, who's kind of been talking all year.
Yeah.
He's more worried about TikTok right now than he is about playoff games. But
Corvette.
Yeah, well, I think him coming out and saying, it's the same Browns team. The Browns is the Browns. Is what he was quoted at.
Well, you're it's the same as you. You're the Steelers, and you're going to do Steelers stuff, like continuously try to run the ball and all that.
This isn't your father's and your grandfather's Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
So I think Baker
or your father's Steelers.
Baker Mayfield played a fantastic game. I think obviously, they've got, outside of Derrick Henry, they've probably got the best, running back punch in the NFL with Trevor Hunt. And honestly, I would almost rather have both of those guys than I would have just the one Derrick Henry. Because just of how versatile they are and how they can do.
Who are you talking about?
Ways.
Who are you talking about?
This brings us to our divisional round picks. We're not going to get too in depth because obviously we're going to, recap these games here next week after they are played and go way more in depth like we did with this week's. But we do want to touch on them and make our picks. Write them down. And Lanny, you are included in this week's pick'em as our guest.
Yeah.
You have a chance to beat both of us. Well,
if I would have known this beautiful podcast was actually taking place, I probably would have tried to get on last week's. But I really thoroughly enjoyed that stuff, man. I had on my Spotify. I listened to the whole thing. I was just like, it's just good. I don't know.
We appreciate
we're glad
that, you man. Enjoy it. Yeah. We're happy to be doing this for everybody out there listening. We're internally grateful for all your support. And, anytime anybody would like to hop on with us, we are always welcome to having guests. It always makes it so much more fun and easier to talk. So
yeah, and we got that Zoom Pro now. So anybody that wants to jump on, we can host up to like 50 people for unlimited minutes. So we can get this thing popping now.
Well, let's get the original picks. As our guest of honor, we'll hit the first game and we'll let Lanny go first.
Yep.
Your Chiefs and your Browns here in your top left corner. Do you think the Browns can shock the world twice?
No. It would be nice, wouldn't it? But I do not think so. I'm going to go Chiefs.
Yeah.
I just can't. I hope it would be nice to have the Browns just to win a Super Bowl, just to be done with it. But no.
Well, short and sweet. That's kind of how we like it when we do our pick'ems. So, obviously, I think I kind of echo that sentiment. I really like this Cleveland Browns team. I think they're scrappy. I think they've got a lot going for them. And especially if they're going to get healthy, because they were missing some guys this last week too. They didn't even have their head coach. They didn't have their offensive coordinator. Didn't have their O-line coach. Their top two cornerbacks were out. They were severely undermanned and did that to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's not forget that. Now they're going to be at full strength. I think this game is actually going to be maybe closer than what people expect, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means, but I think the Chiefs do win comfortably. So I'm going to go ahead and mark down the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I've got the Chiefs as well. The only matchup in this game that favors the Browns is the running back tandem that you alluded to with Hunt and Chubb. They're going up against the Chiefs run defense that was 31st. They were the 31st ranked run defense in terms of DVOA, which shout out to Football Outsiders for that tremendous metric, and all the good work that they do. So, that's the only thing that they got working for them. And that would suggest that they need to be able to get out to a lead and hold it against the Kansas City Chiefs, who is the one team where no lead is safe.
Yeah.
They should get Denzel Ward back from the COVID-19 list. He's a really good corner, and he's a speedy corner, but there isn't a corner that is speedy enough to keep up with Tyreek. There's really nobody on the entire defensive side of the ball that's going to match up with Travis Kelce. So basically, I think this game's going to be where Baker Mayfield's going to have to play catch up, and with the Browns possibly missing Jack Conklin, and the force that Chris Jones is on the defensive side of the ball, if there's any type of weakness on that offensive line, who's been great this year, I think they're going to take advantage of it. And I don't see Baker Mayfield playing catch up, with Patrick Mahomes. So I'm taking the Chiefs as well.
Awesome. Well, looks like it's a clean sweep for the Chiefs on our end.
Yeah.
Whatever. Let us know in the comments. When we post the video, let us know who you guys think, because we would love to have you guys on some pick'ems as well in the comment section, which will bring us to our second AFC divisional round game. Lanny, once again, we'll start with you. Bills Ravens in what I estimate to be probably the best game of this entire weekend.
It's kind of tough because I didn't realize Lamar Jackson was that fast, and but I'm gonna go with the Bills. I just think Josh Allen gets it done. I think Stephon Diggs probably puts up around 100 yards, and I'm just gonna go with the Bills. I think it's time. They shine a little bit. No.
Well, this right here, ladies and gentlemen, the official Landon's locked and loaded upset pick of the week. I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens. I think when it comes down to it, Josh Allen's going to get his. You're going to allow that. But I think this is the week where that lack of a run game really comes back to bite Buffalo in the behind. I think the Ravens obviously have two of the best cornerback tandems in the NFL. As far as, obviously we know what the Rams are with Ramsey, but Humphrey and Peters, they don't play around. And I think that they can, if there's one team in the AFC that have the cornerbacks to slow down Stephon Diggs, I think it's the Baltimore Ravens. And I think just the way with they're playing, obviously Lamar's going to have to do a little bit more with his arm this week than he did last week. But Dobbins is showing up. Gus Edwards is a freight train. Lamar can just absolutely take over a game with his legs. They're clicking on all cylinders. And that Bills defense has kind of been a little bit suspect as well. Anytime you can let, the statue and Phillip Rivers put up, 20 plus points on you as well in a playoff game, it doesn't bode well for your chances with a guy that can actually escape the pocket, because the Ravens also do have a good offensive line, even with their down some guys. So upset pick of the week, Baltimore Ravens, lock it in.
Yeah, I can't fault you for it. I mean, yeah, I kind of alluded to this earlier. I said if there's a team other than the Chiefs that can surprise the Bills and keep them from making it to the AFC Championship game or to the Super Bowl, it is the Ravens. Obviously, the Ravens are. I think this is the two hottest teams in football meeting each other. Here in the divisional round, and nobody's been a better rushing team in football than the Ravens, and now they get to go up against a Bills defense that has been below the league median in DVOA, and they've allowed 7 running backs this year to average more than 5 yards per carry on double-digit attempts. So if the Ravens are able to keep this game close, if they can keep Diggs and Allen in check, it would not shock me a bit to see Lamar and Dobbins both hit over 100 yards rushing. I do think that one thing that's really been going in the Ravens' favor here lately that I think is going to change is the emergence of Hollywood Brown. He's played really well these last few weeks, and I do think that they're equipped with Tre'Davious White that can limit Hollywood. And I think that's going to be a change that has really been helping the Ravens here as of late. That's going to kind of limit them. Now, obviously, we've still got Mark Andrews who's going to do work, but I think a big part of that offense has been the emergence of Hollywood Brown, and whenever Lamar has been able to hit some deep shots, it's been to him, and I think White's going to kind of take that out of the game. I think the biggest matchup, and Landon, you've kind of already pointed toward this. I think the biggest matchup in this game is going to be Diggs versus Marlon Humphrey. If Diggs is able to win that matchup, I think the Bills win this game, and that's what I'm betting on. So I think Diggs and Allen continue their run. They're going to have to basically run through the air, as people say. They can't run the ball, so they're going to have to, by running through the air, they're going to have to hit short passes and things like that along the line as well to move the ball, because Zach Moss has almost been better than Devin Singletary, and it's questionable if he's even going to play in this game. So
he's actually been really good for the entire offseason, from what I've read. So.
Oh, really? Okay. So I mean, that puts a lot on Devin Singletary's shoulders, who hasn't really had a great year. So they're going to be relying a lot on Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, but they've been relying on them a lot this entire season, and it's worked out for them. So I'm going with the Bills in this one, but I think this might be the closest game of the weekend, though.
I will. I just want to say this real fast before we move on. I will say this, just as a salty Titans fan, that the Ravens, that I think it was the last 5-6 games combined opponent winning is like 26, 58, and 1. So I bet you can run on those teams.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. So now that we've got the AFC wrapped
But
up,
we lost, and I'm gonna cry again.
we're here for you, buddy. So now we move on to our NFC picks. We have our first game, the Packers and the Rams. We'll let Andrew start with this one because I know where he's going with this, but we'll let them rose-colored glasses get
Yeah. I picked against my favorite team last week. I picked the Seahawks to beat the Rams. I'm not doing that again. I'm taking the Rams to go into Lambeau and knock off the number 1 seed. There is some injury concerns with the Rams. I think Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp will both play in this game. It's kind of funny because Aaron Donald has let me scroll back up real quick because I wrote it down for whenever we were talking about this. Donald has torn rib cartilage, but is expected to play. Cam Akers had separated rib cartilage earlier this year and missed 2 games because of it.
We all know Aaron Donald's not human also.
Right. So, it's that was just funny to me, and I wanted to throw that in there. So, I mean, I think Donald's going to play. I think Kupp's going to play. And while I'm not sure who's going to play at quarterback, I honestly don't really care. I mean, after Cam torched the Seahawks, who were, by all accounts, the last few weeks of the season, a good run defense. He now is gifted with a Packers defense that was ranked 18th in DVOA, and they struggled to stop basically every single running back they faced for the last 2 months of the season. So I think that's going to play a big part in it, regardless of who's at quarterback. But the most intriguing matchup for me in this game is by far Jalen Ramsey versus Davante Adams. I think by all accounts, Davante Adams has been the best wide receiver in football this year. I think Jalen Ramsey has an argument of being the best cornerback in football this year. And, also all-pro nod. Shout out to Jalen Ramsey for that. Well-deserved. But anytime the Rams has gone up against a team that has a true number 1 receiver, Ramsey, for the most part, has shadowed those guys. And just for, we just saw it last week with DK Metcalf. Ramsey's faced DK Metcalf 3 times this season now. He shadowed him on 65+% of his routes each of those 3 games. And so for those 3 games in total, he gave up 4 receptions for 44 yards on 11 targets. So, that's, I mean, nuts. 3 games with one of the best receivers in football, and he pretty much made him a non-factor. Now, I think Rodgers is better than DK. I think Rodgers is better than Russ.
Yeah.
I think that Adams is better than DK. So this isn't, the same matchup. But if Ramsey can even limit him somewhat to the amount that he's been able to limit DK and guys like that whenever he's faced him, I think things could get really interesting because the rest of our secondary, Darius Williams, our cornerback 2, our slot corner, and then our safeties, they're all better than the Packers' other pass catching options across the board. So if we're able to take him out of the game, I've got a lot of faith in the rest of the Rams secondary. So I think that could make things really interesting. And then, of course, not to mention the Packers are going to be playing without their all-pro left tackle, who's going to be missing this game. And I don't have to bring up how good our pass rush is, and they don't really need anything to work in their favor for the pass rush to work. So the fact that happened, but you've got the MVP. He's going to be MVP going, playing a home playoff game. So I think it's going to be a really close game, but I am going to be taking my Rams in an upset on this one.
Gotcha. Well, that's understandable. And you made some very good points. You said you didn't really care who the quarterback was on your team. I don't think that should be your biggest worry. I think your biggest worry should be the quarterback who's on the other team.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Interesting stat here from Matt Schneidman I found earlier today. So Aaron Rodgers has played a total of 10 games in freezing temperatures in his career. In those games, the Packers are 10-0, completely undefeated. Rodgers has a touchdown interception ratio of 26-1, which is absolutely insane. Jared Goff, on the flip side, who I do anticipate to be your starting quarterback, has played in 2 games with sub-freezing temperatures since 2016, since he was drafted. The Rams are 1-1. Jared Goff has 0 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions in those 2.
I believe it. Yeah.
So I think this is going to be another issue of an MVP level quarterback who can make whoever, the receivers are, whether it be Robert Tonyan, who came out of nowhere this year, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, it doesn't matter who that guy's throwing the ball to, because he's going to make and break everything that offense does.
And just for what it's worth, as of right now, they're forecasting a high of 32 in Green Bay for Saturday. So
if it's 33,
right.
Obviously you can throw that stat.
Yeah, clearly, yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore. But if it's 32 and below, I just wanted to share that tidbit of information with you guys.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, very cool stat. Thanks for Matt Schneidman for bringing that up. And which brings me to my pick. I'm going to keep it short and simple. My mother, I know you're probably listening to this. I can't disappoint you. Going with the Green Bay Packers. Go Pack Go, who are now my Super Bowl rooting interest for my family now that the Colts are gone. So, Lanny, Packers, Rams.
Well, first start out with saying this. Don't tell Aaron that, because that's picking more than one team. So, I like the Packers. I like Aaron Rodgers, but I'm going to go with Andrew on this and take the Rams because of the defense. I also feel like they're going to be able to run the ball. And
you guys listening to this could just see the biggest shit-eating grin on Andrew's face when he said that. If you're watching the YouTube video, you'll be able to.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. What I seen from that defense last game, I was just like, I was so envious. I wish he could trade me some defensive backs, maybe Aaron Donald or something to the Titans or something. Maybe be nice.
Good.
But I'm gonna.
We've got Quentin Nelson, but I would like to keep Aaron Donald out of our division.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I'm going to take the Rams with this pick. The quarterback is a little bit of concern. I don't know what's going on with Wolford. Goff, I mean, I guess he did the best he could. He wasn't doing much, but I feel like if they can establish the run and make it easier on Goff, that defense is going to step up. I'm curious to see the Adams Ramsey matchup, but I'm going to go with the Rams.
All right.
And just for the record, before we move on, I've been as hard as anyone on Goff, especially as a Rams fan, but I do think he deserves at least some credit for going out there and playing under the situation he was in with the broken thumb.
Oh, it was bad, Andrew.
No turnovers. He didn't look great, but I think he did show some toughness and some resilience, and I do think he deserves credit for that. And then shout out to the offensive line for how well they played. We got big Andrew Whitworth back right before the game, and that offensive line just absolutely mauled the entire game. So those guys do deserve some credit before we move on. So shout out to those guys. But yeah, it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
love you, Lanny.
It's going to be a very fun game, and we'll get into our last game of the weekend. It's going to be, for the third time this year, Drew Brees' Saints, Tom Brady's Bucks, old man showdown. Where do you guys kind of land on this one?
I'm going to. I don't really care for either one of the teams, honestly. But if I were, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers, basically. The simple fact that I just think it's freaking Tom Brady in the playoffs. I mean, and to lose three times to a team is so hard. I just feel like they got too many weapons. Yeah, I mean, even though their run defense is good, they got 5 receivers they can throw to. So, and it's Tom Brady in the playoffs. I mean, it's just really hard to go against them. I don't think I really don't think Drew Brees has it this year, and I don't think the broken 17 ribs helped either, or whatever happened. But I'm just going to stick with the Bucks.
All right. Well, to echo those sentiments, it's very, very hard to beat a team 3 times, especially when it comes to a playoff matchup. And it's even harder to beat Tom Brady in a playoff matchup. Uh, so this is the time that Brady usually will take that next step as a quarterback. And it's when things get tough and it's when things get deep into the playoffs. So I'm going to take the Buccaneers with the upset. So I've actually got both 5 seeds going over both 2 seeds this week. Um, there's not really much else to say. I think it's going to be a very good game. I think it's going to be a very tough game because all divisional games for the most part are very tough. But I just don't see the Saints, clean sweeping Tampa Bay this season. And I think they're kind of clicking at the right time, the Buccaneers. I think Antonio Brown's finally clicking with, Brady at the right time. Obviously, Godwin had a monster game this last week. And then you've always got Mike Evans, and you've always got the threat of Gronkowski as well. There's just so many different options they could spread. I think Ronald Jones being hurt, it does kind of handicap what they want to do. But Fournette probably played his best game of the year this last week as well. So if they can get John Vaughn more involved,
Sorry.
I think they have a very good shot of upsetting the Saints in New Orleans.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, I don't think Ronald Jones is too big of a deal in this one, to be honest with you. I don't think it would matter even if he was active. These are 2 of the top 5, possibly even 2 of the top 3 run defenses in football. And so as cliche as it might sound, I think this truly is going to come down to Brady versus Breeze. I mean, obviously it's going to come down to the defenses as well, but this is 2 great run defenses. I do think the Saints probably have an edge up on the pass defense, but I think the Buccaneers have an edge up in the quarterback position, and I like the Buccaneers' weapons more than I like the Saints more. Even they did get crybaby Michael Thomas back, so that'll be helpful for them. And I'm not gonna I'm not gonna give him a compliment without shading him at the same time. I refuse.
Run slant, baby.
But so Brady has never lost to the same team 3 times in one season. He's only lost to the same team twice in the same season, 2 times. Obviously this is different team, different coach, different complete. Everything's different here.
You know what teams did that? I'm curious.
I'm going to guess, since you're asking, one of them was probably the Colts. But I'm sure there's plenty of people betting on that to happen, for him to lose 3 times. I'm not going to be the person to bet on Brady to lose 3 times to the same team, with the final loss being in the playoffs. So I do think with the run defenses here, this is going to come down to Brady versus Breeze, and Brady's weapons versus Breeze weapons. And with how good Mike Evans looked coming off that injury, I like the Buccaneers passing attack more than I do the Saints. And one of the unique things about this season is we don't really have to worry about the dome factor in New Orleans. Normally that would play a big part in this, but it's really not going to this year. And so you give Brady a playoff game with no disadvantage for being the away team, where normally he's not used to being the away team, right? Normally he's riding.
Well, he's also used to having really bad weather in playoff games. Yeah. So give him a nice cozy dome.
Yeah, a nice cozy dome with no disadvantage for the fans and things like that. So of all the years to not be able to ride home field advantage to the playoffs, this is the year to do it. It's tough to pick a team. I mean, the Saints outscored the Bucks 72-27 in those 2 regular season matchups. So I mean, they didn't just skate by to a 2-0 record. They beat the shit out of the Bucks this year. But all that said, I'm picking the Bucks. I'm going to take them to beat the Saints.
All right. So, well, we got our picks, and we're really excited for a great weekend of football coming up. I think all these games have the possibility to be just absolute barn burners, absolute fantastic games. We're really excited. And like I said before, let us guys know in the comment section, who you guys want to pick. We would love to get you added into our pick 'em, and any kind of interactions we can do with you guys, we're always willing to. So this will wrap up the podcast. We greatly appreciate you guys listening to it.
Hey, before we go, so we are now officially on YouTube. So if you're not already watching this on YouTube, if you're on Apple, Spotify, whatever the case may be, if you've made it this far into the podcast, first of all, shout out to you for making it this far. Second of all, go to YouTube, go look up the Amateur Experts podcast, subscribe to the podcast. If you like these videos, like the video, and leave some comments and tell us where you disagree in the comments on that. It's really easy on YouTube to be active and to, to engage back and forth with what you agree with, what you disagree with. So YouTube's going to be really easy to, to be able to communicate with you guys. So for the two of you that made it this far into this podcast, go
That
to
means
the
you, Mom.
YouTube. Yeah. Go to the YouTube, and like and subscribe and leave some comments and let us know. So just real quick YouTube plug, since that just went live today. We want to make sure that that's out there.
Yeah, we're very excited to be on YouTube, and we're very excited to have the first official guest of our show. Thank you so much, Lanny, for coming on.
Absolutely.
Well, I was just gonna say one thing before we end it. Go Browns, just to ruin the playoffs, please. That's fine. Well, they kind of, I guess they kind of already did, but yeah, please.
I made the playoffs better, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Look at that black and gold anymore this year.
And I don't want to repeat, so please.
All right. Well, subscribe on our YouTube channel. Make sure that you follow us on Spotify, follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, and give us some feedback. We'd love to have any comments you guys have, as well as any topics you'd love us to cover as well. So that'll end the show. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.